This is a video for the benefit of my brothers in the manosphere. There seems to be a lot of misinformation regarding feminism, specifically how to properly engage feminists. So let's start by defining our terms by looking at the Oxford Dictionary. Feminism is defined as, quote, the advocacy of women's rights on the grounds of political, social, and economic equality to men. Most other dictionaries also include key words such as women's rights and social and economic equality. Now, a lot of people rightly point out that feminism has fuck all to do with equality because feminists don't address any inequalities that benefit women at the expense of men and reject all sense of female responsibility, which is fundamental to any rights or freedoms. However, you need to remember that feminism has a long history going back to the 19th century, and the definition incorporates all three waves of feminism into a single definition. In the early 1900s and 1960s, during the periods known as first wave and second wave feminism, it was actually about selective equal rights for women, although this was never applied universally. For example, while the original feminist movement sought voting rights for women, it didn't want women to be drafted into the military in times of war like men, so even at its earliest stages, the phrase equal rights was always selective to mean only the rights women wanted, and not all the rights and responsibilities that men have, both positive and negative. Likewise, in the 1960s, during second-wave feminism, women hijacked affirmative action from black people in 1967, 2 years after it was passed in 1965, so that white women have become the primary beneficiaries of affirmative action policies instead of black people, which the law was designed to help to make up for segregation. Thus, in 1967, women gained the right to favorable employment preference over men, including black men, because reasons. So you see, feminism has been about equal rights for women, at least during the first and second waves, to a very limited degree. The good news is that if you are a feminist whose sole mission is to help women to have equal rights as men, congratulations, you've won, been that way for decades. You can go home and shave your armpits in celebration. There is absolutely no legal rights that men have that women don't also have. And there are several rights that women have that men don't have. So at this point, if equal rights was your thing, you would be an MRA and not a feminist. However, if we look at the definition, we're missing the bit about political, social, and economic equality, aren't we? And this is where modern or third-wave feminism comes in. Now that women have all the legal rights of men, aren't we equal? It depends on how you define equal. If you define gender equality as both men and women having equal rights before the law, or having equal opportunities, then women actually enjoy a significant edge over men. Women receive lighter sentences for the same crimes as men, which is just one example of inequality before the law that favors women. In regards to equal opportunity, women enjoy advantages such as preferential hiring due solely to their gender. Obviously, if you define equality as either that of equality before the law or of equal opportunity, women have not only achieved this, but have actually gone a bit too far and are now oppressing men. However, that's not how feminism defines equality, and the key words are political, social, and economic equality. What does that even mean? It's very simple, really. This is describing a form of equality known as equality of outcomes. If you're unfamiliar with the difference between equal opportunity and equality of outcomes, I'll demonstrate the difference using a basketball team. Imagine a basketball team holding open tryouts. Absolutely anyone can try out for the team, including a golden retriever. There are only 12 spots on the team, so all the people trying out must prove that they are one of the top 12 people in order to earn a spot on the team. Despite the tryouts being open to everyone, including women and dogs, the top 12 players ended up all being black men. This is an example of equal opportunity that doesn't result in equal outcomes. Now imagine the same basketball team with the same open tryouts. However, in this scenario, everyone gets to be part of the team regardless of how good or bad they are. The team ends up having over 500 people, only about 10% of which are worth a shit. But during games, they must play each player equally, meaning that their bad players are forced to play 90% of the time. Not to worry though, because to make sure there are no winners or losers, score isn't even kept, and the hoops have been removed so that nobody misses a shot and feels bad. Everyone just bounces a ball back and forth for no reason. Eventually people stop playing and the game ends. That's equality of outcomes. That sounds hyperbolic, but that's how equality of outcomes inevitably works, because it must by necessity play to the lowest common denominator. Let's look at modern feminism and see this in action. From an individual perspective, it's impossible to have economic equality between any two individuals, let alone two genders. Think about two brothers, both born with the same genes, the same gender, raised by the same parents, and attending the same schools. Let's say that the first brother wants to get rich, so he saves his money and works long hours in order to maximize his income. Meanwhile, the younger brother values his free time and hobbies, so he chooses a job that pays enough to live comfortably on, but allows him the free time to pursue other things. Now, in this scenario, these brothers are experiencing economic inequality. The first brother is sacrificing time for additional money, and the second brother is sacrificing money for additional time. Regardless of whether both are happy, and that this inequality is merely the result of personal choice and preference, the inequality still remains. In order to remedy this inequality, the government could raise taxes on the first brother and give the money to the second brother, but that wouldn't be fair to the first brother and would disincentivize him to work so hard. After all, why work if he won't be able to enjoy the benefits of that work? He might as well join his younger brother and take it easy. Thus we see equality of outcomes playing to the lowest common denominator. What about women's social equality? What does that even mean? Nobody is socially equal to one another anyway. Some people are more physically attractive than others, and will enjoy social advantages in everything other than winning an ugly contest. Besides, women are already socially favored over men in almost every area of life. Women are prioritized to be rescued from sinking ships and burning buildings. Men are socially forbidden from hitting women, even when the woman is attacking him, and he is merely defending himself. Men are guilty until proven innocent in cases of rape allegations. In fact, there's a story from Oregon about a man being barred from the campus he was attending for looking like a different man that had raped a woman. His similar appearance was triggering to her, so the male student's academic rights for the college he paid for have become subservient to the woman's emotional irrationality. So in the category of social equality, women have a clear advantage over men, but we still have one more category. What about political equality? Aren't the majority of politicians men? Well, yes, I'll admit that men are the majority of leaders in general, but the question regarding political representatives isn't the kind of genitalia they have, but whom they are representing. All you have to do to prove that men have an unfair political advantage over women is point to the politicians that advocate for men's rights at the expense of women, and compare those numbers to the politicians that advocate for women's rights at the expense of men. While a handful of local bills regarding men's rights have been proposed from time to time, they are always killed before even coming to a vote. Compare that to the Violence Against Women Reauthorization Act of 2013 that passed 286 to 138 in a majority Republican Congress. Now you're probably saying,
why would anyone be against the Violence Against Women's Act? Are you in favor of violence against women?
No, I'm not in favor of violence, period. So why wasn't the law called the Violence Against People Act? There are in fact numerous studies and resources that show that women are actually more violent than men. And one of the major reasons for that is because they know that if the man defends himself, he will be arrested as the aggressor, which gives her the freedom to attack him with no fear of consequences. Now, back onto the subject of political representation by gender, it doesn't even take into account the male feminist politicians in Congress. If you eliminate all the male Republicans in the House and the Senate, and only count the females, as well as the male Democrats who always vote for the feminist agenda, you have 286 feminists versus 254 male Republicans. Or in other words, 53% of the current 113th Congress are either women or male Democrats who fully support the feminist agenda to the letter. Women are only 51% of the population, so they're actually overrepresented. So again, looking at gender equality, women enjoy advantages over men before the law and in terms of opportunity. In terms of political, social, and economic equality, women enjoy advantages over men in both the political and social realm. The only advantages men have is in regards to economics, and this is entirely due to personal choice and preference differences between men and women. In fact, numerous studies show that women between the ages of 20 and 30 earn more than men. The reason this drops off after 30 is due to women starting families and dropping out of the workforce, which, as a reminder, is entirely a matter of their personal choice to do so. Women who choose never to have children continue to earn more than men. So there are really only three ways to solve the so-called economic inequality between men and women. The first is for men to get pregnant, which is absurd. The second is for neither gender to get pregnant, and to use technology such as the artificial womb to take the burden of pregnancy off of women, which is a technology generations away. The third is to redistribute income from men to women via government force, which is known as communism. So if women have all these legal, social, political, and economic advantages over men, why is feminism so popular and men's rights so unpopular? Well, the reason is that what feminism is really fighting against isn't legal, social, political, and economic inequality, but biological inequality. Now, obviously women and men can't be biologically equal, that's insane, right? However, that's what feminism is really about. No amount of legal, social, political, or economic advantages will ever be enough, because men and women are not only different biologically, but women are undeniably inferior biologically. Men are clearly physically superior to women, which is why even feminists support lower physical standards for women. Some places like the New York Fire Department are dropping physical standards altogether to boost female hiring. Men are clearly intellectually superior to women, which is why feminists support lowering math standards for women. Despite all the preferential policies to encourage women to go into STEM, they don't, because they can't do math as well as men, and they get useless degrees in things like gender studies and psychology instead. Women are 21% more likely to graduate from college than men, but men earn 50% more than women right out of college. If I previously stated that women earn more than men, how can this be? It's because, on average, women earn majors in bullshit while men earn majors in STEM. Men are 52% of the total workforce, but 76% of the STEM field workforce. So here's the brutal truth. Women are biologically inferior to men, and they know it even if they deny it. But what's worse is that feminists are actually mentally retarded, which is why you can't criticize them because it's hate speech. You can't pick on retarded people, they can't help being retarded. When you see a retarded child playing with their own poop and telling you they're baking a cake, you don't correct them and try to convince them that their cake batter is actually diarrhea. You just walk away as quickly as possible and let them live in their little delusional world. Even women who are not feminists are not immune. A predominantly female group of men's rights activists known as the Honey Badger Brigade was recently kicked out of the Calgary Comic and Entertainment Expo after feminists filed 25 complaints of being harassed. Let me quote what was said that caused these 25 feminists to feel harassed. A member of the Honey Badgers named Allison was answering a question about feminism and said, and I quote, "The reason why I don't like feminism is because you promote this idea that women are defined by being victims. If you look at the content of all your issues, men also face considerable problems, and they need to be brought into the story, and not just for men's sake, but also for the sake of challenging the notion that women are defined as victims. Can you spot the harassment? If you can't, it's because you've forgotten that feminists are mentally retarded. So let me reword the quote so that the harassment becomes more apparent. The reason why I don't like retards is because you promote this idea that retards are defined by being retarded. If you look at the content of your issues, normal people face considerable problems. And they need to be brought into this story, and not just for normal people's sake, but also for the sake of challenging the notion that retards are defined as being retarded. You see now? It's much more obvious when you remember that feminists are not normal people like you and me, but mentally retarded children that are not responsible for their own actions. If a retard punches you because they think you're a piñata, you can't just hit them back. They're retarded. You need to find their parents or an authority figure, and kindly ask them to help this poor retarded child find her parents, or the nearest feminist group. So what is the proper way to deal with feminists? A reference regarding how to calm down a retarded person from WikiHow offers some of the following sage advice. 1. Speak calmly, clearly, and with a moderate volume. When engaging with a feminist, never shout, even if they are. Remain calm and speak clearly and with an even tone. 2. Model your vocabulary usage after theirs. Use the words feminists are familiar with. Don't bring up outside facts and statistics that might upset them. 3. Don't cover or hide your mouth. The feminist may think you're playing peekaboo. 4. When possible, opt for simple words instead of ones that are complex. This one is obvious. Remember that these feminists only received a college education in gender studies, so they can't be expected to understand big words. 5. Avoid long and complex sentences. This goes hand in hand with avoiding big words. Feminists like to use short sentences, often in the form of chants that may or may not rhyme. 6. Use open body language. Feminists perceive anything that isn't friendly as harassment, rape, or a threat. Even neutral body language can cause them to feel threatened, and cause you to be accused of harassment or rape. 7. Be patient. Feminists need time to process new information. Take things slow and make sure they understand the new concepts you're presenting before moving on. Check in with them occasionally. 8. Accommodate their needs. This one is very important. Feminists need a quote-unquote safe space, often referred to as a safe space for women, although non-feminist women are never welcome. This allows feminists to be among their own kind, and do arts and crafts like vomiting and menstruating onto art canvases. 9. Accept their quirks. Feminists invariably have quirks such as colored hair, a few too many chins, etc. If you're going to engage with feminists, you need to understand and accept that their quirks are part of their identity, as well as their headmates, otherkin identities, and nonsensical concepts of gender. 10. Find conversation topics that interest them. Talking about gender equality or how women are privileged in society will never interest a feminist. You should talk about them. Find out how many undiagnosed mental disorders they have, and see how oppressed they are, and always remember to check your privilege. So in conclusion, feminism is a hypocritical ideology for mentally retarded children with penis envy that resent their biological inferiority and will never be satisfied no matter how much legal, political, social, and economic superiority is granted to them over men. So I hope I helped you understand feminism more fully. Please like, favorite, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.